"Come on, Jason," the host grinned. "You actually think that spinning back kick would work in real life?" The studio laughed. Not a loud, genuine laugh, a performative one, the kind of laugh coached by flashing applause signs and a grinning floor manager behind the cameras. Jason Statham sat still in the guest chair, clean black blazer, button-down shirt, no tie, relaxed posture, calm eyes. But inside something shifted. He didn't react. Not yet. The host leaned in, soaking in the moment. Hair perfect, smile sharper than his questions. The desk in front of him gleamed under the studio lights. Behind him, a giant LED screen displayed a freeze frame of Jason midair from one of his movie scenes, kicking a guy through a window. The host gestured to it. "This right here. Come on, be honest. That's not real fighting. That's choreography." The audience chuckled again. Jason looked at the screen, then back at the host, and said nothing. This was supposed to be a regular promo spot. 10 minutes, light laughs, quick plugs, out, but something had changed when the cameras started rolling. The host wasn't just asking questions. He was poking, digging, looking for a moment to go viral. "Look," the host said, spinning in his chair for dramatic effect, "we all love the movies. I mean, Transporter, great fun. But in a real street fight, you think you're walking away." The crowd murmured, some laughed, some waited. Jason adjusted his sleeve calm, then finally spoke. "If I have to walk away, it's not a fight." The crowd went quiet for half a beat. Then the host leaned back with mock surprise. "Ooh, all right," he said, smirking. "Jason's got some bite." Jason didn't smile, didn't blink. He just turned his eyes back toward the screen behind the host. "You ever trained?" he asked, voice even. The host shrugged. "I mean, a little boxing, nothing crazy." Jason nodded. Then don't talk about what you don't understand." The tension in the room snapped like a cable under pressure. Even the camera operator stiffened. The host blinked, twice. That hadn't been in the script. "Okay," the host said, forcing a chuckle. "Okay, we're getting spicy." He looked to the audience. "You guys feel that little tough guy energy coming through the jacket?" A few people laughed nervously. Jason still didn't smile. The host tried to pivot. "All right, so seriously," he said, clicking a remote and playing a fight clip on the screen. "You're saying this stuff, the flips, the elbows, the dramatic takedowns, you could actually pull that off outside a studio?" Jason watched the clip. In it, he ducked under a wild punch, slammed a guy into a wall, and finished with a sweeping leg kick. When the clip ended, Jason looked him in the eye. "I don't need to pull anything off," he said quietly. "I only need one chance." The crowd oohed again, but softer this time. Less laughter. More tension. The host smiled, but it was tighter now, less playful, more defensive. He turned to the audience. "What do we think, folks? We getting the real Jason here or the action figure version?" Then he stood up, walked to center stage, tossed off his blazer, rolled his sleeves up. The audience gasped, unsure where this was going. Even Jason leaned slightly forward. "You know what?" the host said, half laughing. "Let's settle this. You show me one of your famous moves, just one. Right now, on me." The crowd started clapping. Jason didn't move. The host waved him on. "Come on, just don't break my nose." Jason finally stood, walked slowly toward center stage. Each step felt louder than the last. The studio went quiet. A tension settled in the air, a kind of silence that made people stop breathing. Jason stood across from him, 5 feet away. The host held up his hands. "Go on, I'm ready. I want to feel what it's like to be in a real movie fight." Jason stared at him, still, then took one step forward, then another. They were chest to chest now. Jason leaned in slightly and whispered, low enough only the host could hear, "You're not ready." Then, without warning, Jason stepped back, pivoted, and with lightning speed snatched the host's wrist and brought him off balance, spinning him lightly but cleanly down to the stage floor, controlled, silent, no harm. But full exposure. The host blinked up at the lights, hands on the floor, audience stunned. Jason stepped back, offering no explanation. The host scrambled to his feet, red in the face, laughing, but not really. All right, he shouted. "I guess that answers that." He tried to pivot to the next segment. Jason calmly returned to his seat. The rest of the interview, a blur. The host kept trying to recover, kept trying to joke, kept trying to get the room back. But he'd already lost it. Jason had shown what no clip could, control. The host fumbled his notes, mumbled his sign-off. Jason stood, shook his hand, looked him in the eye, and said, "Thanks for the lesson." The audience didn't clap right away. They just watched Jason walk off stage, every step quiet. Like a man who just walked away from a war, without ever needing to fight. Backstage, the crew didn't speak. They just stared at the monitors. The host sat at his desk, still red-faced. He looked at his producer, who was frozen, headset halfway off. Did we just... He didn't finish the sentence, because no one knew what they'd just watched, but every one of them knew it was about to go viral. The clip hit the internet before Jason even reached the parking garage. No sound effects, no added music, just raw footage. The moment Jason spun the host around like a ragdoll and left him blinking on the stage floor, it wasn't aggressive. It wasn't violent, it was worse. It was surgical, cold, composed. By the time Jason's car pulled into traffic, the comments had already started. He didn't throw a punch, and still owned him. That wasn't a move, that was a message. Jason just proved why he doesn't have to talk. Inside the studio, the host stood in his dressing room. The door was shut. His blazer was still off, tie undone, hair slightly sweaty. He stared at the screen of his phone in disbelief. One of the staff had sent him the YouTube upload. He pressed play again, watched Jason's eyes, his posture, the pivot, the takedown, the calm. His own voice echoed through the clip. "Come on, show me something." Then floor. His phone buzzed again, this time from a group chat, the show's producer, a few staff members, even the sound guy. One message stood out. "Hey, you okay? That was brutal, bro." Another, "It's already at 600K, trending in sports, not even entertainment." The host tossed the phone onto the counter, paced the room, muttered to himself. That wasn't even a real move, that was theater. He looked at his reflection in the dressing mirror. I gave him that moment. I let him do it. But the mirror didn't argue back. It just reflected a man who'd just been made small without being touched. By the next morning, the video passed 3.2 million views. MMA podcasts were breaking it down frame by frame. Stunt coordinators were reacting on TikTok. Even legit fight analysts were chiming in. One former UFC coach tweeted, "That's how you handle arrogance. Control, redirect, and walk away. Beautiful work." Jason, meanwhile, said nothing, posted nothing. He didn't need to. The world was speaking for him. At 11 a.m., the host sat down with his producer and PR rep. They spoke in hushed tones inside the glass conference room. "We need to control the narrative," the rep said. "Jason's not talking," the producer replied. "That's the problem." The host slammed a fist on the table. "I'm the one with the show. I can flip this, make it entertainment." The rep raised an eyebrow. "How?" The host stood, pacing now. "We do a follow-up, right? I go live, I explain what really happened, that I let him do it for show. Give people a little drama, make it playful again." The producer hesitated. "Or," she said, "you leave it alone. Let it burn out." He shook his head. "No, I don't get humiliated on my own stage." That night he went live, front-facing camera, casual clothes. Off-the-record vibe. He smiled at first. "All right, guys, let's talk about what really happened with Jason Statham." Over 60,000 people tuned in. He leaned in. "Look, Jason's a pro, we all know that. But let's be honest, I let that moment happen. I stepped into it. I knew we needed a headline. That's what late night is. That's what entertainment is." He laughed like it didn't matter. "Some people are acting like I got destroyed. Come on. You think he could really do that to someone if I didn't want him to?" The comments section didn't agree at all. "You still on the floor, bruv. It's giving damage control. You asked him to show you something. He did." Back at Jason's house, a friend texted him the link to the live stream. Jason didn't open it. He was working the bag in his home gym, calm, focused. The screen in the corner played a muted news segment. His name scrolled across the bottom. He ignored it. Later that night, someone tweeted a side-by-side clip on the left, Jason flipping the host. On the right, the host saying, "I let that happen." The tweet went viral. Caption: "You can't lie when the whole internet's already seen it." The next day, TMZ posted a headline: "Statham destroys late-night host with silence." Another site wrote, "Masterclass in humility." Jason didn't need a mic, just a wrist. The host was everywhere, just not how he wanted to be. By the end of the week, a new round of memes hit. Jason standing calm with control. The host mid-fall with clout chasing. "This you," above the live stream clips. Behind the scenes, network execs were growing uneasy. A quiet memo went around the office. "Let the Statham story breathe. No forced segments, no follow-ups." Translation: stop making it worse. But the host didn't get the message, or maybe he ignored it. He walked onto his own soundstage 2 days later for the next taping, tried to open with a joke. "Let's give it up for Jason Statham and his hands of steel, right?" Mild laughter. He tried again. I let him do it. But hey, credit where it's due. Nothing. He looked out into the audience. They were watching, but not laughing, not with him, not anymore. Jason's name came up again when a reporter tried to ask him about the clip at a press junket. Jason smiled politely, then said, "I don't perform off-screen," then moved on. Back at the host studio, the vibe was shifting. Writers stopped pitching jokes about Jason. Producers started pushing other guest segments forward. The control room started pulling reaction shots more carefully, no more replaying the moment. But the host, he couldn't let it go, because deep down he hadn't just lost the moment. He'd lost something he couldn't name, something quiet and permanent. One afternoon, while walking into the back entrance of the studio, he passed a janitor mopping the hallway. The guy looked up and said with a grin, "Hey, you ready for round two?" The host didn't answer, just kept walking. But his face said everything, and that was the thing. It wasn't the fall that hurt, it was the echo. Jason had done so little, and yet somehow it had rewritten everything. But the worst part, Jason still hadn't said a word, and the world. Well, before we see what they chose, if you're enjoying this story and love such dramas, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Every new subscriber keeps me motivated to dig deeper, uncover more wild stories, and bring you even crazier content. Your support means everything. It's what keeps this channel going strong. And trust me, there's plenty more chaos coming your way. Back to the story. The world had already chosen whom to listen to. The studio team started changing things behind his back. It was subtle at first. No more segments with physical comedy. No more challenge the guest games. Writers stopped submitting Jason-related punchlines altogether. The memo had gone silent but clear: "Don't poke the bear again." The host felt it in the air, energy around him. It used to bend toward him. Now it hesitated. Producers didn't laugh quite as quickly, interns didn't smile quite as wide, even makeup artists kept their chatter neutral. He hadn't just lost a moment, he'd lost tone. So he tried something new, something desperate. He booked a guest, a retired MMA fighter. Big personality, no filter, the kind that threw elbows just telling stories. And he pitched the segment as a light-hearted breakdown of fight scenes, including Jason's. The fighter came in laughing already. "Man, I love Jason. But let's be real, he's not winning in a cage." The host leaned forward. "Right, he flipped me on stage, but that was camera-ready stuff." The audience chuckled politely. The fighter shrugged. "That man's tough, but fights don't happen in slow motion." Then he laughed again. But something was off, not in his words, in his eyes. He wasn't mocking Jason, he was nervous. After the segment, off-camera, the host leaned in backstage. "Appreciate you going in on that." The fighter looked at him for a beat, then said, "I wasn't going in. I was being careful." The host blinked. "Careful?" The fighter nodded. "You ever seen that man train?" "I have. There's nothing fake about it. He's calm cause he knows exactly how fast things can go bad." Then he walked off. No selfie, no handshake, no vibe, just distance. Back in his office, the host sat alone, clicked through his inbox. Fan mail had slowed. But the hate mail, that had plateaued, no longer violent, now worse, disrespectful. One subject line read, "Still running your mouth." Another, "He let you walk away." He clicked on one, just one. It was blank, just a GIF. Jason standing still, watching, waiting, silent. The host spun in his chair, restless. There had to be a way to flip this. He had the cameras, the reach, the platform, but it didn't feel like power anymore. It felt like a spotlight you couldn't hide from, so he changed strategies. He posted a short video, no jokes, just him staring at the camera. "I want to set the record straight," he said. "I got carried away. I poked a guest. I shouldn't have." Pause. "I got humbled." Longer pause. "And honestly, I deserved it." He ended the video there, no hashtags, no music, just that. It exploded. But not in the way he expected. It didn't make him look weak, it made him human. And for the first time in weeks, people leaned in. "All right, that's the first honest thing he said. You just earned back a sliver of respect. Now that's the clip you should have opened with." Jason still said nothing, but someone close to him liked the post. A low-level stunt coordinator who'd worked with Jason 5 times. Then a fight choreographer reposted it with the caption, "Not a bad start. Keep going." The host sat at his desk again, unsure how to feel. He didn't win anything, But he hadn't lost more, and right now. That was enough until the email came. It wasn't public, not viral, just a quiet note through a network contact. Jason had agreed to return, not for an interview, not for another appearance, but for a charity segment. The event was real, a fundraiser for injured stunt performers. Jason had supported it for years, but he'd never asked for airtime, never shown up on camera for it. This time, he'd agreed to film a private feature, and Jason had requested the host to introduce it. At first, the host thought it was bait, a setup, a chance for Jason to finish the job publicly this time. But then the contact clarified, no jokes, no stunts, just a segment. He doesn't want to speak, he wants you to. The host didn't respond right away. He sat back, breathed. Read the email again, then once more. There were no insults in it, no warning signs, no power plays, just clarity. He said yes. The day of filming was quiet. Jason arrived through the back entrance, alone, no entourage, no makeup, just a simple black shirt and jeans. The crew prepped the studio. The host waited off camera, heartbeat loud in his ears. Then Jason stepped into frame, not to be interviewed, just to stand, to let the segment speak for itself. The host walked in front of the camera, cleared his throat, then said, "Tonight's not about showmanship. It's not about banter or clips or clever lines. Tonight's about the people who do the real work and often get none of the spotlight." He glanced at Jason just once. Jason nodded, and that was it. The segment aired 2 nights later. The internet went wild again, but this time, the energy was different. The comments weren't about Jason's control, they were about the host's tone. Okay, that was solid. Respect to Jason and respect to the host for not ruining it. This feels like growth, for both. Backstage after filming, Jason approached the host, extended a hand, they shook. Then Jason said, "Now we're even." The host nodded slowly and Jason added, "But you were never the problem." The host looked up, confused. Jason met his eyes. "You thought you had to prove something." Then he turned and walked away. The host stood there, processing. And for the first time since that takedown, he didn't feel humiliated. He felt relieved, like someone had finally closed a loop that had haunted him. The clip of Jason's final line, "You were never the problem," leaked online. It was quiet, but it hit harder than any mic drop. The network wanted more. They saw the numbers from the charity segment, spikes in watch time, positive engagement, even advertisers taking note. For the first time in weeks, the host's name wasn't trending for the wrong reasons. They pushed for a follow-up. "Bring Jason back," the executive producer said. "A full sit-down this time. No stunts, no sarcasm, just talk." But the host didn't respond right away. He stared at the wall of framed photos in his office, moments captured with guests, celebrities, athletes, comedians, and one photo was missing. Jason, the producer nudged again. "He'll do it. I spoke to his team." The host raised an eyebrow. He agreed. "Only if it's real, no script. No prep questions, just conversation." A week later, Jason walked back into the studio, same quiet presence, same simple black tee, same calm. But this time, something was different. He wasn't coming to defend anything. He was coming to give it back. The interview started with no applause track, no big flashy intro, just the two of them, sitting across from each other under soft lights. The host looked down at his notes, then back up. "I'm not going to waste time pretending we're friends," he said. "I disrespected you the last time you sat in that chair." Jason nodded once. "You did." Silence. The host took a breath. "But you didn't swing back, you didn't clap back, you didn't say a thing." Jason leaned forward slightly. "I didn't have to." "Why not?" Jason's eyes met his. Calm but direct. "Because you weren't talking to me." The host froze. Jason continued. "You were talking to a version of me in your head, the guy you thought I had to be, the one who needed to be put in place." Another pause. Jason shrugged. "I've met him before, in locker rooms, on sets, behind microphones." The host blinked. There was no anger in Jason's voice, just truth, and it hit like a punch to the ribs. He leaned back in his chair, voice low. "Can I be honest?" Jason nodded. "I was scared." That word felt heavier than anything said before. "I saw someone who didn't flinch, who didn't play along, and instead of respecting that, I tried to tear it down." Jason tilted his head. "Because control scares people," he said, "especially when they don't have it." The host exhaled. "I thought I was in charge, on my stage with my mic. But the moment you said nothing, I felt small." Jason gave the faintest smile. "That's the thing about silence. It's not passive, it's active. It makes people listen to what they've been avoiding." The room fell quiet, not an empty silence, a full one, the kind that holds meaning. The host finally said, "I didn't lose to a punch." Jason nodded. "You lost to yourself." A pause. Then Jason added, "But that's where every real fight starts." The interview continued, no flashy edits, no viral questions. Just two men, one who had built his image on noise and another who had mastered the space between words. After the taping, they stood in the hallway behind the stage. No cameras, no crew, just them. Jason looked at the host, then said, "You know what people don't get about control?" The host shook his head. Jason stepped closer. "It's not about holding power, it's about choosing not to use it." The host nodded slowly. "That's what you did." Jason shrugged. "I didn't need to. You were already breaking." They stood there for a moment longer. Then the host said, quieter this time, "Thank you for not making it worse." Jason smiled faintly. "I didn't need to teach you a lesson." "Why not?" Jason looked at him one last time. "Because you were already ready to learn." They shook hands again. This time, it wasn't about respect. It was about completion. That night, the interview aired. No gimmicks, no twists, just honesty. Clips floated around Twitter and YouTube. "You weren't talking to me. You were talking to a version of me in your head. Control isn't about using power, it's knowing when not to. Every real fight starts with yourself." The internet didn't explode this time, it quieted. The clip trended, not because it was dramatic, but because it was rare. Two men, once on opposite sides of a viral storm, just talking. A day later, the host was walking down the street when someone stopped him. Young guy, maybe 20. Hoodie and gym bag slung over his shoulder. He didn't ask for a selfie. He didn't joke. He just said, "That episode made me call my dad." Then walked away. The host stood still. Not because he didn't understand, but because he did. And just like that, he finally knew what Jason had done. It wasn't about embarrassing him. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about proving a point. It was about opening a door. One the host had been too proud or too loud to find on his own. 3 months later, the moment was gone. The clip that once dominated every feed faded, the memes archived. But something lingered, something you couldn't measure in views or trends. It was a shift, not in the internet, not in television, in the host. He still cracked jokes, still walked out to applause, still wore that polished smile like a second skin. But now, there were pauses, little moments of silence where punchlines used to be, moments where he let things sit. And every time he did, the audience noticed, not because of what he said, but because of what he didn't. One night after taping, he stepped outside alone. Cool air, empty street, car waiting at the curb. He stood there a second longer than usual. Then his phone buzzed, a notification. YouTube, new upload. Jason Statham speaks at inner city boxing fundraiser. He tapped it without thinking. The video opened with Jason standing in a gym. No stage, no mic. Just a warehouse filled with young fighters, families, coaches, and trainers. Jason wasn't dressed up. Just track pants, a hoodie, hands in his pockets. He stood in front of a crowd of kids, boys and girls aged 10 to 17, most of them wide-eyed, some visibly unsure of who he was. And then Jason spoke, not loud, not dramatic, just honest. "I didn't come here to teach you how to punch. You've got coaches for that. I came here to show you what control looks like." He looked around the room. Most people think control is about being louder. It's not. It's about knowing when to stay still, when to let the other guy swing first, and when to choose not to swing at all. The host watched in silence, standing alone on the sidewalk, car still idling nearby. The video continued. "You don't win by performing, you win by listening and learning, and sometimes by doing absolutely nothing." Jason gave a half smile. That's where the power is, in stillness. The camera panned out, kids nodded. Some clapped. One young boy raised his hand, asked how Jason stays calm. Jason answered, "Because I know what I'm capable of, and that's enough." The host didn't realize his driver had gotten out. "Sir," he looked up, blinked. "Oh yeah, sorry." He slid into the car, still holding the phone, still letting the words replay. Back at the studio, the interview they'd aired with Jason had become their most rewatched segment of the season. Not because it was loud, because it was real. And Jason, he didn't return to promote anything. No new film, no product launch, just the fundraiser, just the message. One of the studio interns printed a quote from that segment, taped it above the breakroom coffee machine. "Control isn't about using power, it's knowing when not to." Nobody took it down. Weeks later, the host walked into his office to find a plain envelope on his desk. No return address. Inside, a photo from the charity segment, Jason standing beside him, both of them relaxed. Not performing, just being on the back, written in sharp black ink. It's never the punch. It's the pause before it. JS. He held the photo for a long time, then opened his desk drawer, moved a few things aside, and placed the photo inside, not as a reminder of what happened, but as a marker of what changed. Later that year, during a university commencement speech, the host shared part of the story. No names, no viral clip references, just a single anecdote. There was a man once who didn't raise his voice when I mocked him. He didn't swing when I gave him every reason to. And somehow, that silence said more than I ever could. He paused, let the words land. I learned something from that man, that control isn't about the crowd, it's about character, and that strength, sometimes it looks like stillness. The crowd claps softly. No thunderous standing ovation, just respect. That's the legacy Jason left behind, not broken bones, not headlines, not a knockout clip, but a moment, a pause, a shift. And sometimes that's all it takes, not to win a fight, but to change a man.